Hello, and welcome. My name is MiniBetrayal, and this is something a little bit different to what I've been doing lately. This is a sort of design explanation tutorial kind of thing on what you can see in front of you now, which is a counter. At the moment, it's just counting up one every tick. So you can see up here, the game is running at 60 ticks per second, so you can see it goes up 60 every second or so. So today I'm going to explain exactly what is going on here, and then show you how you can build it yourself. So one thing to mention, I am currently in the creative mode mod, just so I don't have to collect resources and everything, in a blank empty map with just concrete everywhere. So this counter here, this can display basically any number you want it to. At the moment it's just hooked up to this clock, which, as I said, just counts up one every second. If I get rid of that, it'll drop back down to 0. And if I put in, let's give it an X signal, and hook it in, so you can see it goes to 1. And I can set this to any number I want. So 10, 100, 1000, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Oops, how do I go to 90,000? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. There you go. Now it's only reliable up to 10 digits. That's because of it's just how the game works with the circuit signals. It's a 32-bit signed number, which means you have a maximum positive value of 2,147,483,647. You can see if I even put this up to 8. Yeah, that is actually a negative number. So if I come back out of that, go back into this, you can see it suddenly switched back round to negative. So it works out with like powers of 2. I think that is 2 to the power of 31 minus 1, or something like that. So yeah, only reliable up to 10 digits, and certainly no higher than that 2.1 billion. But for the most part, you shouldn't need numbers this big. This over here is the actual blueprint. There will be a link to the blueprint string in the description. So this one here, it will give us 3... let's just give it some power. This gives us up to 3 digits, so I can put X as 1, 2, 3. If you go above it, it will only display the 3 least significant digits. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 apparently, it will display 3, 4, 7. To make this longer, it's just scalable. You take another blueprint of between those lights, and you can't just put it there, you do have to overlap them one at a time, like that. And you'll see it will just go outwards. There's nothing to stop you putting more than 10 on, but as I said, it just won't work. The leading zeros are not visible. If for any reason that you do want leading zeros, such as in this clock down here, that's easy enough to do. If we look a bit closer here, you can see there is a decider combinator here, which is attached to the actual matrix display. If I... actually, that's the one, I do want that. If I unplug that one, and instead plug in that one, I will get the leading 0. Like that. So you can configure it that way. Let's put those back. Okay, so a couple of things you can do with this. Obviously you can just display any number you want. If you get a chest, you can, instead of hooking it up to a combinator, you can hook it up to a chest, and then actually that's a little bit of a lie. If you're not hooking it up to a combinator, you do instead need to say you need to turn whatever the signal is into an X signal. So the way to do that, let's say, what have we got? So 24 red cables are in there. If I hook that into that, and then this combinator here, which is an arithmetic combinator, you just say red cables, if I can find them. There they are, red cables times 1, or you can also do times 1, or you can also do plus 0, both are equally valid. Output X, and you can see that's now switched to 24. Other things you can do, if you hook it up to a roboport, like that, what you can do is set this to read logistic network contents, and then if you have a logistics storage with some stuff in it, so 45, you can see even remotely it can tell how much you've got in there. So you can measure any materials like that. If you look at my 1 per minute series, you can see I've got a bunch of counters for just this purpose. Let's grab some more red circuits, I'll need them. Another thing you can do with it is you can make a clock here. So this it's been running for a while. This one here is ticks, so 60 game ticks per second, so this only counts up to 60. Then we've got seconds, minutes, hours, and then days. So this last one here I've set up so it doesn't give you the leading 0 if you don't need it. Okay, so let's get started. So firstly, this is a 7-panel display. So you can see here, this is 1 number's worth. It's currently displaying an 8. And there are 7 lots of panels contained in it. So we've got 1 at the top, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we've got 7 signals, each of which control 1 of those panels. So if you sort of turn your head sideways to the left, the reason I've set them up like this is because they sort of match up. So this is the top of the display, this is the bottom. So A is the signal for these lamps up here. So if I get rid of that A, those ones will turn off. If I put it back, they'll turn back on. Similarly, B is this one here. And C, D, E, F, and G. So you can choose whatever signals you want. I've just gone for A, B, C, D, E, F, G because I can. Some people prefer to use numbers, but when you're using numbers on a display meant to display numbers, it can get a bit complicated. Not complicated, confusing sometimes. So I've gone for the letters instead. The way this is hooked up, all of these lights are hooked to the ones left and right of it. And then this section on the right is hooked up to the whole column, up and down. They are hooked up with both red and green wires. Now only the red wire is used in this case. So this constant combinator here is outputting those A, B, C, D, E, F, G signals. The green wires, if I hop back to one of these, there's a constant combinator here which is hooked up to the greens, which is how I control the color. So we'll explain color a little bit in a moment. If you have a panel of more than 1 number, you see, as I highlight over these lights, the different circuit connections are sort of highlighting. So the red circuits are split between the different numbers. However, everything is on the same green circuit. So if I put in, oops, that's a bit too much, 1, 2, 3. So they've each got different numbers, but they're all the same color. So if you want to, I guess you could put different colors for each number. I don't know why you would, but hey. Okay, so the background lights, they don't do anything at all. They have no enabled condition, so they never turn on. The actual panels, so the A panel is set to enable if A is greater than 0, which is why when A is 1, they turn on. If A is 0, they turn off. And then similarly, these ones all have B greater than 0, C greater than 0, D, E, F, and G. The background lights, they're only there for contrast. If you wanted, you could just make a display like this. This is exactly the same. So if I turn off A, the one at the top turns off. If I turn off G, the one at the bottom turns off, that kind of thing. Okay, so whether you have the background or not, you'll want all of the lights connected by a red circuit, as well as a green circuit if you want to give them a color. If you want to give them a color, you also need to check this Use Colors box, and then that way if they receive any color signal, it will turn on. Now, at the moment, that's the only one that is colored because all of the others aren't using colors. Okay, so, and that's exactly the same, but okay, so we've got 10 different numbers we need to be able to display. So 987654321 and 0. With these 7 panels, you can display any of those numbers. So, see, this is already displaying a 0. If I want it to display a 1, I need to turn off A, B, E, G, and D as well, but that was already turned off. If I want to display a 3, I need to turn back on A, D, and G. So that's now displaying a 3. So, for the next bit, we need to learn a little bit of binary. So, we have our 10 different numbers over here, and we have 7 different signals, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And each of the signals corresponds to a different panel, D, E, F, and G. So, what this is just a little matrix. So, if the number 9 uses panel A, so you can see it does, these lights switch on. So you can see 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, they all use it. 4 doesn't, that's switched off. 3 does, 2 does, 1 doesn't, and 0 does. So this gives us on, off, on, off, on. Okay? And then we've got that for each of our 7 signals. What we can do is turn that into a binary number, which is what we have over here. So if on is a 1 and off is a 0, so that on, off, on, off, on becomes 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. Okay, so that is a binary number. If you don't know anything about binary, it's just like counting normally if you're missing all your fingers and have only got one thumb. That was a terrible joke. But essentially, binary can only have 1 and 0, whereas normal decimal numbers, they can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. But they are both numbers, so you can turn a binary number into a decimal number. So this number here, the 11111011101, is actually 1005. And similarly, this number underneath it is 881, and what we need to do is turn all of these binary signals into their decimal numbers. Okay, I'm just going to set it back to midday just so we can see the next bit easily enough. There we go. Okay, so we can still see these numbers, so that's good. The reason for that is because this means we can store the A signal for all 10 numbers in a single number. So this 1005, let's say we want to store let's say we want to display a 3. What we need to do is turn that 1005 back into binary, look at the relevant digit for number 3, so that's 0, 1, 2, and 3. See, it's a 1, so we know that the number 3 does use the A signal, and therefore the bit at the top is lit up. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so now we've got all of those numbers. What you need to do is just pop them into a constant combinator. So you can see each of these displays here. They've got 3 constant combinators next to them. This one here is just carrying the number that I want it to display. That's not actually part of the blueprint. This one here is for the color, if I want to give it a color. But yeah, I haven't even hooked that one up on these displays, so that one isn't needed. This one here contains those numbers. So it looks as though they're rounded. At least A and F look as though they're rounded to 1,000. But you can see that B is 881, C is 927, D is 892, 325, 1019, and 877. You'll need to put these into a constant combinator manually. Okay. Then we get into the nitty-gritty, the actual circuits. So, this is the circuit that appears above the first number. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 combinators. One of them is a decider, 3 of them are arithmetic combinators. So this is the number that we're putting in. You can see I've currently set it to 1, 2, 3. What this does is if x is greater than 0, it will push that signal through. That means if x is equal to 0, nothing else will be going through. Also, this will stop it from trying to display a negative number. It is possible to set up a display to show negative numbers, but it's a little bit more complicated. So this will make sure that only positive numbers are displayed. That signal, there we go. So this comes from the constant combinator into there. That signal gets passed to this arithmetic combinator. So this says x. That is called the modulo. It looks like a percent symbol rather, but it's called modulo. And modulo 10. That is a constant number that you just set down there. And then it outputs a y. So if you look over here, as I mouse over it, you can see the input signal is x123, and the output signal is y3. So what the modulo operator does is it divides by the number, so in this case it divides by 10, and gives you whatever is left over that doesn't make a whole number. So if you divide 123 by 10, you get 12.3. But Factorio doesn't like decimal numbers, so instead what it does is it gives 12 remainder 3. If you think back to like primary school division, 12 remainder 3. So what the modulo symbol does is it returns the number 3. Effectively, what all of that means is it will return the last digit of your number. So 123 returns 3. If I change this to 456, it will return 6. There you go, y is 6. Okay, that signal then gets passed into this arithmetic combinator, along with the arithmetic combinator we set up earlier on the green circuit. So I think... I'm not actually sure if that has to be on a different network. I think it does. Might be able to get away... I'm going to keep it on the green circuit, because that's how it is in the blueprint, and I haven't tested it on the red circuit. But anyway, this symbol here is called a bit shift. Now, this goes back to binary. What this does is it will automatically convert the numbers into binary. So it will take that, let's look at the E signal, say. I'm going to put this back to 1, 2, 3 for a second. So if you can see, the input E is 325. That's coming straight from over here, 325. It turns it into a it turns it into a binary number. So where's E? So it turns 325 into 0101000101. And then we are bit shifting to the right by y. So y, if you look at the input signal, is 3. So what that means is it will essentially move all of these numbers 3 places to the right. So this 1 will disappear, this 0 will move into there, that 1 will move into the 0 moves into the 1, the 0 moves there, the 0 moves there, the 1 moves there, etc. And then it happens again, the 0 will then disappear, and the 1 will move across, and then the 1 will disappear. So essentially, it removes the last 3 binary digits. So we will be left with 101 0, 0, 0. And if you turn that back into a decimal, that is what it returns. So it turns 325 into 40. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Let's come back in and zoom in. It then passes that into this one. Now this is an AND operator. So this takes the input and does AND 1. Again, that is a constant number, not the 1 signal, the number 1. If you know what's going on here, this is equivalent to modulo 2. If not, what it does is, if you have two binary numbers, like 10110 and 10011, what it will do, for each binary digit, it will say, are they both 1? So here, this one's a 0, so that'll be a 0. These are both 1. There's a 0 there. Both of these ones are zeros, and both of these are 1s. So if you say 10110 and 10011, the answer will be 10010. If you put all of that into decimal, you get, let's see, 1, 2, 4, 16, 4, 20. So 22 and 19 equals 18. Hopefully that wasn't too complicated. But when you have a big number like this, so what was the E signal? 40. Which is equivalent to 101000, with the last 3 digits cut off. Okay? So we've got 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, and 1. So these over here, these are all equivalent to zeros. So these ones will all be zeros as well. And then 0 and 1, they're not both 1s. So this answer will be 0. So this here will output a 0. So you can see the E signal is not output. Another way of saying that is the AND 1 essentially ignores everything and just looks at the last digit of whatever is left over. So we've already gotten rid of the last 3 digits, and then the next last digit is a 0. So when you put in the number 3, the E signal is a 0. And if you look back over here, that means when you put in the number 3, the E signal is a 0, because the E signal, that's this panel down here, is not switched on the number 3. If we switch this back to 4, 5, 6, okay, remember this one checks for positives, this one checks for the last digit, so that's a 6. This one bit shifts everything by 6, so it gets rid of the last 6 digits, so our E signal, get rid of that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Our E signal is now 101, which should be 5. So if I look at the output of this, E is 5. There we go. And then the last digit of that, so 101, is a 1. So the E output is 1. Which means for the number 6, the E signal is switched on, because this panel is on. And the reason we've got these each in there and there is because we want to... So this one has all of those A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that Y signal being put in. It bit shifts all of them by Y. And it also checks the last digit of all of those 7 signals. So it does it all at the same time, which means whatever this outputs is going to be the signals we want to light up our panel. So our last digit of 456 is 6, and we want to light up A, B, D, E, F, and G. And if we look up at number 6, we've got A, B, D, E, F, and G. So that gives us the first panel. To move on to the next panel, so we come back down here, we want to put in, so these 3 combinators here are exactly the same as these 3. The difference is we've got this one at the front and this one at the back. This one at the front, it takes the signal from this modulo output. So if I put this back to 1, 2, 3, that's wrong. So if we want a second panel, obviously we need a few more combinators. So these 3 here, the AND, the bit shift, and the modulo, they're exactly the same as these 3 here. They even have the same like conditions on them. So we've got the AND 1, bit shift Y, modulo 10, and 1, bit shift Y, modulo 10. We do have these different ones at the front and the back. The front is just a normal divide, and it takes its input from the output of this positive checker. So it actually takes the same input as the first modulo. And what it does is it divides by 10. So if you remember the modulo, it divides by 10 and then returns whatever's left over. So the normal divide, it just divides by 10 and gets rid of whatever's left over. So it turns 1, 2, 3 into 12. So we've already done 1 digit, so what this does is effectively gets rid of the last digit. It then passes that on into the modulo, so it turns the 12 into a 2. Now it is still carrying the so you can see there that the output of Y is 2, so this time we're only looking at the 2 digit. It then passes that into the bit shift, where everything gets bit shifted down to the relevant number, and the AND, which checks the last binary digit to figure out if it should be on or not. What this does, this is an extra one. This is just to get rid of leading zeros. As I said earlier, if you want, you can get rid of this one and have the leading zeros in the display. But the way it gets rid of the leading zeros, it takes this output here, and it's actually the output of this one that it's checking against. So this one is outputting a 12. Which means it's checking for a 2. And this one says if x is greater than 0, output everything it takes in. So it's also taking in the final results. So if x is greater than 0, i.e. if there are still numbers to check, then you can output everything. If we're only working with 1 digit, so a 5, so this one checks it's positive, gets the last digit, which is a 5, bit shifts it and outputs the results. This one divides 5 by 10, and that gives us 0 because 5 is left over. There is now no x over here, so it doesn't output anything, and therefore nothing in the display is lit up. If you want to go for a third display panel, you just copy the second one. Then you need to still take in these numbers that we worked out earlier, which is just hooked up along the bit shift operators, and you need to pass in whatever's left over. So if I turn this back to 1, 2, 3, this one returns the 1, this one turns it into a 12, and then you take that same signal from the divider, put it into the beginning of the next divider, and that will turn it into a 1. Well, it'll check the first digit, and then if you had a fourth one, you would hook it up the same. So just connect the green circuit on the bit shifts and the red circuit from the output of one divider to the input of the next. This effectively divides the x by 10 to return 0, and therefore we have no output signals. Then, once you've got your actual panel display, so if we come back up to here and pinch this, where are we? Over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've put gaps between these, so these aren't lined up properly. But if we output the first one, if you wanted, you could put in another one of these leading 0 checkers, but the way I do it, if you just hook up the AND operator directly in, it will output the relevant numbers. If you want there to be leading zeros, you can just continue to do the same. However, if you don't want leading zeros, take the output from the leading 0 checker, and then just connect up on the red circuits from each one. And this one is a leading 0, so it won't be connected. If I do want the leading 0, just connect it to the output of the AND operator. And that's about it, actually. So what we'll do now, that's the explanation of how everything works. Hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, you have two options. Either you can use the blueprint string for the blueprint I made, which I will pop in the description, or let's make it from scratch now. So, firstly, you want to copy these numbers. Either you can work it out. When I first did it, I just did it on pen and paper, but you want to get these numbers here. So we'll grab a constant combinator and we'll put those numbers into it. Again, you can choose whatever signal you want, and they don't have to be in this pattern in there, as long as the lights you put in use the relevant signals for the relevant patterns. Then you want to check if x, I've used x, you can use whatever signal you want, but it does have to be a specific signal. If x is greater than 0, then output the x's. Let's bring some power over here as well. And just stop things flashing. Okay, then we want to grab the last digit. So that is done with an arithmetic combinator, set to x modulo 10, output, and I've just chosen y here. Okay, and then we want to hook that to that. Okay, now we've grabbed the last digit, we want to bit shift it, so we take each, because we're going to pass in all of those signals that we worked out, so each of those bit shifted to the right by y, and we'll output each again. So at the moment, because I haven't hooked it up, there we go. Y is actually 0 because I haven't given it an input, so it's bit shifting each of them by 0, which would be the equivalent of just checking this last column here, but that's fine. So each bit shift to the right by y. Then each and 1 output each, and then hook up the output of the bit shift to the input of the AND. Then we move on to the second digit, which takes each divided by 10, and it takes its input from this decider combinator there. We then have these three exactly as they are, and we just need to hook up the output of that divider to the input of that modulo, and the green circuit from one bit shift to the next. Then we want another decider to say if x is greater than 0, output everything. And that will take its inputs from there and the divider. Okay. Then we've got these 5 again. So the last 5 you put in from the divider through to the decider combinator, stick them down again. This divider takes its input from that divider. This bit shift takes its input from the green circuit. That is our circuit setup. Then we need some lights. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the way I've done my panels, they use an empty line at the top, followed by 2, 3, 3, and then 2, 3, 3, and 2, and then an empty line at the bottom as well. So we'll just put in this one first. We'll set up the circuit conditions on these lamps. So if I just hook these together first. Okay, and then the top panel, we want A is greater than 0. Copy that onto that one. This panel here, we want B is greater than 0. Copy that into those two. C is greater than 0. D is greater than 0. E, F, and G. And if you want, you can also set use colors on each one. Now we will put in the background lights. So we've got, the way I've set mine up, as I said, a row at the top, a row at the bottom, and a row to the left. And then we want to hook all of these up with red circuits. And then if you want colors, you can also hook them up with green circuits. Okay, so that is our panel done. If we then copy that, we'll copy one there and one on this side as well. What I like to do is actually put that constant combinator there, just so it lines up a little bit nicer. So that way we've got 5 combinators on top of 4 bits of number and a gap, and then just to stop the number coming right up to the edge, what you can do is just put a line in on that side as well. And if you just hook them up with circuits, they don't need to have any condition or anything. It will just stop the lights turning on in the night time rather. So we've got 3 panels, all the circuits set up. Then we just need to hook up this one to them, and then like that and that, and then hook up the green circuits, and you can see it's already displaying a 0 because it's not getting any input, but no more than 1 0. Okay, then if we want to give it color, we can put in another constant combinator there and hook that up to the green circuit as well, so that way it will display colors for us. If we want to extend it, you can copy these last 2 sections here, one thing I did on my design is I just put in lights at the end of each number, like that. So that way I've got a nice easy bit to copy and then overlap when I paste. Like that. And then to give it an input, you just hook it up. So this is our dummy input. Let's say x is equal to that. And then you want to hook it up on... In fact, it doesn't even matter what color signal. You just hook it up to this first one here. Okay, the reason this isn't working is because this first divider here, I forgot to tell it to output. So let's just hop along and copy them. There and there. There you go, 687,416. Is that the right number? Yes, it is. You can see if we put another one down there. Oh, we need to copy them again. Yep, we get the 6, we do not get the leading 0. So yeah, hopefully that was informative for you. It's a bit longer format than my normal episodes. If you want to do a clock, by the way, you can... So this is essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different displays which are just next to one another. This one just takes its input from a clock. This is a fairly standard thing you can look up if you need to. This one gives the next system an extra tick every time that one gets to 60, and the same and the same. This one gives the days a tick every time it gets to 24 hours. And then this one will just count up and up. So, yeah, hopefully you've found this interesting. If not, then I don't know. Go and watch another video, I guess. But yeah, if this works out, I will do a couple of other episodes in this kind of format. I'm planning to do one on my system for train stations as well. If you have any comments, questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, I will say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.